Okay, on page 392, we're going to look at a couple of problems here together. We're going to look at number 16. Number 16 gives us y equals -4 sine of 2/3 x. And they've asked us to give the amplitude, period, and frequency, and then sketch the graph. We're just going to go right to the graph part here. We'll talk about the other things on the way to get to it. Okay, but when I set up my coordinate plane, okay, I need to set up my period first. So we know that period is equal to 2 pi over b. Okay, and of course it's the absolute value of b here, but the 2/3 is positive, so we don't need to worry about that. So if we do 2 pi divided by 2/3, same as multiply by 3/2. Okay, the 2's would cancel out, and we'd be left with 3 pi as our period. Okay. So 3 pi is our period. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 tick marks. Put my period there. Half of 3 pi is going to be 3 pi over 2. A quarter of 3 pi is going to be 3 pi over 4. And then 3/4 of 3 pi over, or 3/4 of 3 pi is going to be 9 pi over 4. So I'll set up my x tick marks. I'm going to recognize that I don't have a vertical shift, but I do have an amplitude change here of 4. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to set that up here. There's one other issue here we got to deal with, and that's the negative. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay, but you'll notice in this case there's no horizontal shift and there's no vertical shift. Okay, and it's a sine function. So am I going to start anywhere different than the origin? No, just like normal. Now here's the difference. I want you to think about what that negative is going to do to our graph. Right?
Reflect over the x-axis.
Exactly. Just like any other negative out in front of any other function we've dealt with, it's going to create a reflection. So instead of going up first, we're going to go up. Instead of going up to this point, we're going to go down to 3 pi over 4 -1 to 0, up to 1, back to 0. And when we get done, we'll have 1 cycle drawn. And once again, if you need to draw 2 cycles, you can certainly draw 2, but that's going to be our ultimate process. All right, one last one I want to look at, and then I'm going to cut you loose to try some here. Number 62. We got y equals -3.5 sine of 2x minus pi over 2. And this is as hard as it gets because we have all 4 variations. Fair enough? So watch the order in which I do this because this is the order you're going to want to follow. Okay? Draw your coordinate plane. Make 1, 2, 3, 4 tick marks. Calculate the period. In our case, 2 pi over 2 would give us pi. So we got a period of pi because the b value here is 2. So I'm going to go pi over 2, pi over 4, 3 pi over 4. Okay. So calculate what the period is, put the 4 tick marks on. Right, and again, that might not be all the tick marks we're going to need, but that's where we're going to start every time, no matter what this equation looks like, no matter how elaborate it is. Okay. Now, what we're going to do next is figure out what our high and low are going to be. Okay. If I have a 3.5, that means I'd go from -3.5 to 3.5. However, okay, I have a -1 over here. So what's that going to do to my y-axis? It's going to take everything and move it down. So instead of 3.5, we're actually going to go as high as what? This is 2. I'm going to go to 2.5 right here. Okay. And that's really not a point on the graph, but I'm just going to mark that for myself right now. Okay. If you want to, you can put a little line there just to know that's as high as you're going to go. And then if we were at -3.5 because of the amplitude and we go down 1, then we're going to go down to -4.5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to go down to that x level or y level, if you will. Okay. All right. So we kind of have an idea of where this function is going to be located on the coordinate plane. Okay, now we have to figure out what's the translation because now we got to figure out where's our starting point going to be. And this is the one where we have to be careful because you notice that the 2 is not factored out. So if we rewrite that part, sine of 2, and we factor out an x, then wouldn't that really be pi over 4 here? Think about undistributing that. If we redistribute that back in, that would give us pi over 2 if we multiplied 2 times pi over 4. Okay. And so what does that create for us really? Even though it looked like a pi over 2 to the right, it's really a pi over 4 to the right. So again, it's sine, so instead of starting at the origin, we're going to start at where? We're going to start right there at pi over 4, so there's our first point. Okay? And again, it's all about the tick marks once you set this up right. Okay? So this is our starting tick mark, so that means at the first tick mark we better be, normally we'd be up, but it's a negative, so we better be down. So we're going to draw one down here at 4.5, negative. Okay? And you know what? I lied, sorry. One more thing I messed up. We should actually start here. We normally start at 0, 0, but we're pi over 4 to the right, and we're also 1 down. So I plotted that in the wrong spot first. So we're here. Another thing I usually do too, this is helpful for me, is if I know there's a vertical shift of -1, I usually draw a little dashed line here at -1, just so I remember that that's like the middle of the function. Okay, and that everything is going to be based on that middle. So we're going to start middle, then we're going to go bottom, and then at the next tick mark we're going to go middle again. The next tick mark we're going to go to the top. Okay, and you notice that if I were to graph that right now, that would not be an entire cycle, would it? Remember, that's because of the shift, so I really need how many? I need one more tick mark here. So that'd be 5 pi over 4 would be the next one. And then I could go down to that one. And then I would have my picture, wouldn't I? Okay. And notice it's everything we thought it was going to be. It's got a amplitude of 3.5. From that middle line, it goes up 3.5 and down 3.5. Okay. It's got a period of pi, from pi over 4 to 5 pi over 4 is pi. Okay. It's got a pi over 4 to the right, and it's got a -1 vertical shift.